Right, we start now. Right, in 1988, white Australians will be celebrating their bicentennial, and it's obvious to all of us blacks across this country, especially in Victoria, that we will not be celebrating no 200-year party. Why should Victorian blacks celebrate any sort of activity which highlights mass murder, genocide, the rape of our people? Did the Jews celebrate their genocide? If white Australians think that black Australians are going to celebrate in any sort of anniversary, whether it be 150th, whether it be 200th anniversary, whether it be the dream time, nothing will be celebrated until such time that justice is given to blacks in this country. And justice will only come about if land rights becomes a reality, and that is in every sense of the word, that it is a moral justice, it is a social justice, it is a legal justice, it is a political justice, and it is a human justice. And that will only be brought about by this country accepting the fact that if they want to be a nation, truly a great nation, then they must recognise that justice must be given to black people in this country. To date, this country has shown no guts whatsoever. It can never show any guts, no soul, until such time that land rights is given to Aboriginal people. In every aspect of Aboriginal life, whether it be in health, education, employment, housing, Aboriginal people in this country are down the scale. There are a lot of celebrations occurring around the world, around Australia, over the next few years. And in fact, in 1987, the America Cup Challenge is on in Perth. Black people should mobilise in terms of not celebrating those sort of major events in this country, but to mobilise in terms of putting pressure on the Australian government through the international networks, through Australian people themselves, for that government to accept its responsibilities as given to it by the 1967 referendum. That is, that they should pick up responsibility for Aboriginal affairs, and that includes land rights legislation that is worked out in proper and effective consultation with Aboriginal people right across Australia. No government in Australia, whether they be commonwealth or state or local, have done anything in any real sense of the word to alleviate the conditions facing Aboriginal people in this country. State governments in the last couple of years have tried to develop land rights legislation. They have been half-hearted, weak-kneed in their attempts to develop that land rights legislation to the satisfaction of Aboriginal people across Victoria. For example, the Queensland government won't even go near any sort of land rights legislation. The Commonwealth government is so weak-kneed that it lets people like Bajelki Joe Peterson press their own governments. The legislation that has been put up in Victoria bears no resemblance whatsoever towards what Aboriginal people in this country want. That legislation is vital towards alleviating the injustices faced by Aboriginal people. Our kids are still being oppressed in the schools. We have one of the highest health negative indicators in Australia. Our organisations are continually being oppressed through the lack of resources or lack of funding. Our kids in a whole list of areas in youth, sport and rec have been continually bypassed in favour of an assimilationist policy, that is to get black people to be like white people, to be part of the system, a system which has annihilated us physically, morally, religiously, and every other facet of living. if people expect us to live with them, then it is about time the Australians right across this country realise that for that to happen, then they have to seriously have a hard look at how governments operate, how communities, white communities operate, how individuals and families operate as they see Aboriginal people in this country. We are people in our own right. We have strong family networks. We have a lot of talent, a lot of expertise within our black community, and that expertise and talent has to be developed even further. I think in 200 years we have come a hell of a long way, but before that we were a lot further. To a certain point we've been taken back down the track because of white oppression. I would also say that given police brutality that occurs throughout this state, in fact, a couple of miles away from here in Fitzroy, we've had police harassment, and it's been organised at a high level, and that is a serious situation to be in. I think that those sort of situations breed terrorism, the terrorism that people saw in the ghettos of America a few years back. If people expect us to continue to live under those sort of conditions, then I think 1988 is going to be one hell of a shock, and it's going to be one hell of a party for someone. White people have to realise that if you crush people for long enough, they're going to get up and fight back. And I think that's been happening in the last few years, but I think it's going to definitely mobilise over the next couple of years. And I don't think we should wait for 1988. I think people should be aiming that sort of thrust at the America Cup Challenge in Perth. Over $500 million is expected to be derived from that particular event, prior to it and during it and after it, from sponsorship and whatnot. $500 million on a yacht race when we have one of the highest leprosy rates per capita in the world. We have one of the highest infant mortality rates per capita. We have the lowest social indicators in terms of education. You can count our doctors on one hand. You can count Aboriginal dentists on one hand. How many Aboriginal scientists are there? How many aircraft pilots have we got? They are examples of Aboriginal people being oppressed through every other means that white people can do. Sure, you don't have to shoot us now. There are other ways of doing it. White Australia is breeding terrorism in their own backyard, and they don't know it, they do not appreciate it, and they are not prepared to have an honest look at themselves and how they treat Aboriginal people. Terrorism that will surface in all the major capital cities before 88. That is what's staring you in the face. The other factor is, of course, that over $3 million was raised for the Ethiopian people. What about Aboriginal people? What about the starving that are in your own backyard? What are you doing about Aboriginal people, Aboriginal kids? What are you doing in terms of alleviating those conditions? If white Australians want this nation to be a great nation, then you have to pick up your responsibilities in terms of Aboriginal people across this country. If you're not prepared to, then your party in 1988 is going to be one hell of a fizzer. And I think it's been proven in Victoria that the celebrations for the 150th anniversary have been a bit of a dud because Aboriginal people have mobilised and boycotted it.